Hi, everyone. Good evening. I think we have a couple of people joining us just now. We'll give it another 30 or 40 seconds before we get started. That way we give time for everyone to join us. In the meantime, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Yes. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hello, Pernilla. Hi. I'm also myself in Sweden. Nice to see you there. Yes. Let's give it one more minute before we get started. In the meantime, please keep adding any hellos and welcomes to the chats. I'll be monitoring it from my side just to make sure that we have things moving smoothly. All right, now we're a minute in. I think we can officially begin. Hi, everyone. Nice to say hello to everyone. My name is Noel. I'm part of the Beetroot Academy team. I'm quite excited to welcome everyone to our discussion tonight on front-end development. It will be a very information-packed conversation, so please have a notebook ready or just have something to write down any questions that you have. You can also send those directly in the chat, and then towards the end of the evening, we'll talk through them. Today, we're very fortunate to be joined by not one, but two individuals that are part of the Beetroot Academy family. First, we have Ivo, who's one of our instructors, and then also Antonio, one of our recent graduates. Today's discussion will take place in a couple of parts. In the first part, we'll go through an overview of the front-end development career that will be done by Ivo. Then we will talk a bit more about Antonio's previous experience with Beetroot Academy and his now career in front-end development. And then at the very end, we'll say a couple of words about Beetroot Academy and then jump into any of the Q&A session questions that you have prepared for us. So if you have any of those, write them down throughout the presentation. If there's anything pressing that's very topical, we might address it during the discussion. Otherwise, we'll save those towards the end. Yes. All right, Ivo, hand it over to you.
Hello to everyone participating in this webinar. My name is Ivo Novikov. I will be your key speaker for the next hour or hour and a half, depending on how many questions you have and what information you want to know about our profession. So, who am I? I am a front-end developer. I have been a front-end developer for more than 6 years now. Currently, I'm working as a web developer at Schwarz IT Bulgaria. I am skilled in web design, web development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript. Also have been part of projects using the Vue.js framework, the React.js, Angular, and I also have been a part of several different mobile teams where we created or at least on my end, I created the front end for different mobile applications. One of the most important applications that I have worked on is the Stork Express. Maybe you have not heard of it. Usually how I describe it to people is basically Uber for deliveries or Uber for packages. What did Stork Express do? When a person traveled from point A to point B, he could buy something for another person, or he can take on the route a specific package and transfer it to another person along the line. So, and in the end, I think it was successfully required by DHL, and to this day, it's working with DHL. And I'm very proud of this project. And here in the Beetroot Academy, I am one of the teachers. I teach front-end, and I will give you all the information that you need in order to start your journey in front-end development, and after the course is over, to be fully equipped to start your professional path. Later on, we'll hear from Antonio, who has successfully finished the Beetroot front-end course, and he will tell us more about his journey and how he started out. So, what this webinar aims to achieve? Here we'll talk about what is front-end development, what are the typical tasks and goals of a front-end developer, a day in the life of a front-end developer, and how to tell if front-end development is actually the career path for you and if you should pursue this career path. So, next slide. So, what to expect? Basically, you will get a quick but very precise glimpse in the world of front-end development. Also, we'll give you some tips how to tell if you're well-versed or you should take the front-end path. And also, we'll have in the end a QA session where you can ask all the questions that you have. Also, if you think of a question and you're dying to tell us this question, you can always write it in the chat and we'll refer to it as soon as we are done with the presentation.
Yes. Okay. And before we get into the meat and bones of the discussion today, let's have a little bit of an icebreaker. This way we can get the energy up. You can maybe feel a little bit playful after the end of a long work day. So if you take a look at your screen here, on a scale of cats, how are you feeling today in this particular moment? Are you cat number 1, cat 3, 4, 5, 7? Ivo, how are you feeling? Which cat are you?
So I would say I'm cat 7 because I'm very excited. I'm always excited when I have the pleasure of meeting new people who are eager to learn more about development and in this particular case in front-end development. And if we can reach out to people and encourage them to start their path in front-end development, I will be even happier than the cat in picture 7.
Very good. Antonio, how are you feeling?
I'm also the cat number 7 because I am curious.
Very good. Sweet. I think we can see a couple of the chats coming in, a couple of different cats feeling today, a couple of people who are curious, hopefully, motivated, maybe some that are feeling like cat number 2, a little bit sleepy. I think I'm cat number 4 because I'm going to be doing quite a bit of talking this evening. So very good. But yeah, so I think now we'll hand it off to you, Ivo, for the remainder of the evening. It's discussing front-end development from top to bottom. As we discussed, if you have questions, send those through the live chat.
So what is actually front-end development and how it differs from other types of development? So the front-end development, as with other types of development, is part of the life cycle of a product. And the front-end development is actually the part of the product that you, the client, sees. And usually when we do something, it's visual for everybody. So the front-end development part is, I would consider it one of the most important parts of the application. Why? Because even if you have the best logic, even if you have the best backend, the best developers, the best team, if your front-end, meaning the part that the user, the client, or whoever sees your application is not good enough or is not working, it basically destroys the whole project for everybody else. So our work in front-end development is the first thing that a potential client user sees when they open the application. What do we do in this front-end? We get the, and you can change the next slide. So our tasks basically as front-end developers is to receive our design and to create all the features and all of the ideas in that design in our front-end. Also, what we do is we make it responsive, meaning that in the past we only have PCs, now we have tablets, we have mobile phones, we have smart TVs, we even have large screens, and we have to set the front end in such a way that everyone who uses our application can see it in various different screens, and it will always look the same. And it will always be possible for the user to use our application. Also, what front ends do is they give accessibility to the program or the application, because there are different users. So there are usually people who are either blind, deaf, and they should also be able to use our products. So this is also a very important part of the front-end development, making the product accessible for everybody. And of course, maybe you see dot number 3, where we actually make it available not only for different devices, but also for different operating systems, meaning that it looks the same on Windows, in macOS, on Linux, or the operating system for phones, which are iOS, Android, and some smaller operating systems. So this is what we as front-end developers do. Also, something very important. Maybe you have watched films, maybe you have watched TV series where you just see a developer sitting there writing code non-stop. This cannot be further from the truth. What usually we as front-end developers do is we have discussions, we think about different ways how a certain feature can work, we collaborate in a team. Usually we are several people, we communicate inside our team, we communicate with different teams, we communicate with testers who also test our features and what the work that we have done. So this thing that you see in different media where a person is locked in a room and he's writing billions of lines of code non-stop without ever even blinking, that could not be further from the truth. Usually when we write stuff, there's a lot of thinking, a lot of sketching the idea, basically thinking how it should work, thinking of ways the user can break it, or usually the tester before the user can try to break our application. And of course, discussing it with the tester and usually also with product owners, with designers, and all people involved in the product. Also, we tend to talk with other developers. There's also backend developers. The backend developers are more connected with servers, and they give us the information usually which we display on in our front end. So there's a lot of discussion. It's not an asocial profession like many people think. So this is the typical tasks and goals of what we do as front-end developers. So next slide. So the day in the life of a front-end developer, most of the time, of course, goes in writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and using various frameworks. In our Beetroot course, we use the React framework. Why? Because it's the most popular one. 90% of available jobs out there are using the React framework, opposed to the Vue, the Angular, and other smaller frameworks. If you're not familiar, basically the HTML creates the structure, the CSS creates the visuals, and JavaScript creates the interactivity, meaning that if you push the button, you expect something to happen. So JavaScript is the one that is responsible for all of the things on your site basically working. Of course, we transform the design, meaning that if we have done it for example, for a mobile device, then we try to make it also look good in websites, look good on TV screens, if necessary, tablets, so on and so forth. There's a concept called mobile first, which indicates that we start from a mobile design and we expanded to all other devices. Why this is the modern approach? Because nowadays most of the people access the internet through their phones. That's why this has come as a new way of thinking when implementing front-end to make it look good on mobile and then expand it to other devices, because usually your client will most likely use a phone to access your application. Of course, we talk about mistakes or improvements with either stakeholders or our testers. These testers are called QAs, quality assurance. Their job is to test all of your features, and if something is not working as expected, they address you, they explain to you how they think it should be working, and you go back to them. Sometimes maybe they are right, sometimes they might be wrong, and the feature usually is not working as they expect it to work. So it all depends, as I said, a lot of communication and a lot of teamwork. Also managing the content on websites or the applications. As you know, each website is basically a living organism, meaning that it evolves over time. Every one of you is probably familiar with your favorite application or game or website just one day changing its whole outlook, or just changing a specific pattern or changing a button. This is what we also cover, try to update our websites. Of course, we want our products to look as modern as possible. And of course, we try to make our products as faster and more efficient. And if you remember 10 years ago how long you waited for certain sites to reload, nowadays you may have noticed that even though you're going through pages, none of the pages are reloading. This is because of the single page applications that are made nowadays. And in the course itself, we will discuss that and we will see what are actually single page applications, and we will create one for ourselves. Okay. And how to tell if front-end is actually for you? There are several things that I would say are important for a person to be not only a front-end developer, but also a developer in general. So this is the idea that you like solving problems. You also have a good eye for detail. In front-end development, what is different from other development position is that we also tend to make everything look pretty. So if you go on a site and you see very nice buttons or very nice table, very nice animations, all of these things are done by the front-end team. So we try to make things pretty. We try to make things nice. We try to give our users the best experience that they can get, so that they come again and again to our site and they use our products. Also, if you like collaborating in a team, if you like the thrill of creating something out of nothing, because all of the time I tell my students that developers are actually the modern magicians, because we create something out of thin air. When we start creating, we have a blank canvas, and in the end we have not only something that is pretty, but it's also functional and it can help you in everyday life. And in the course we will see what we can build and how even the small applications that we create in everyday life can be used in every day and help us with normal tasks in our everyday lives. So I guess this is from me.
Yes, and then if you're thinking about some of the exploration, right, how you want to consider whether front-end development is a good career option for you, there's a couple of free resources that Beetroot Academy offers. If you haven't yet seen those, we do have a free introductory course to working with front-end development, which you can find on our website, and then I can link in the chat in the email that goes out to you after tonight's event, where you can take an introduction course and learn the very basics of working with HTML and CSS and put together your very first or lines of code. That way you get a bit more understanding about what front-end development is like. Although it will be very introductory, I think it's a good way to practice and make sure that this is something that you want to pursue. A bit later today, we can also talk about other resources that Beetroot Academy has, including our full front-end development course and program. But before we get to that, I do think it would also be great to hear from one of our previous graduates to tell us a little bit more about his personal experience and journey with launching front-end development. So, Antonio.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Beetroot colleagues for inviting me. And let me introduce myself. My name is Antonio, and I am currently studying information technology at the Technical University of Moldova. And my university background motivated me to choose development field. And I opted for front end because basically I love to make the visual part of a website. How did I find this course? I did research and found it. It was offering the best materials and content. And during this course, we practiced a lot, wrote much code, and work in teams to simulate working environment. Also, it's important I tried not to use GPT and use only class knowledges. That's how I was identifying gaps or some questions. And I would like to express a big thank to Ivo, our teacher, for tricks, for open-minded communication with us, and also patience. Yeah, this course gave me a strong base of knowledges. However, you also have to learn intensive by yourself to become a good developer. And there is a lot of open source information, various forums on internet, so you aren't alone. And I think these days it's easy to find information on topics. Yeah, and the best path for finding a job, I think, is to apply for internships. I think this is the best option because so did I, and I'm currently working at a company called FusionWorks. Here I am focused on the front-end part on web, but also I had to deal with front-end part, but only for mobile development like React Native. And yeah, also I'm studying Node.js and Express for backend to become a full stack developer and to solve any problems. And in summary, I think it's important to be hardworking and persuasive to reach your goal, no matter what is your desired field, front end or something else. And the last part I wanted to mention, as Ivo said, front-end developer life is not always about code. We try to find the best approach or a solution for doing a certain task. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I want to highlight the part that you mentioned about being a very someone who has a persevering personality, someone who is a continual learner. I know from firsthand experience in the previous product development team that I worked on that working with React Native is not always the easiest thing, but there are a lot
Yeah,
of
I didn't like this part, so we turned back into front-end on web.
This the previous development team that I worked on, we hosted our mobile applications they were hybrid applications. So we had a web application that we then wrapped in a native shell and published as a native application on iOS and Android, but it was done using React Native. And I remember very clearly our front-end developers sometimes really struggling with why we were working for React Native, to the point where one of them even proposed that he should learn to code in Swift or to code in Kotlin so that he
Yeah,
could
it's
write a
very
native
complicated.
application instead.
You have to give permissions for iOS, for Android, and yeah.
Yes, our application had Bluetooth connectivity to both hardware monitors for healthcare and also to Bluetooth for headset devices, and that was always incredibly tricky. But I digress. If you're curious about other success stories of previous students from Beetroot Academy, we have a collection of different testimonials that you can read about. You can find them on beetrootacademy.com/all-articles. You can also include that in the chat so you have a quick access to it. But there you'll see that we do have quite an extensive experience working with individuals, not just in front-end development, but across different technology concepts, whether it's UI, UX design, project management and IT, QA engineering, as Ivo mentioned before, which is a quite very close role to front-end developers. So if you're someone who wants to begin this journey, think about that and check out some of the testimonials. Before we go on to the Q&A session, I thought we would spend a couple of minutes on Beetroot Academy's teaching methodology and how we approach learning, especially complex topics like front-end development. It's all based on our over 9 years of experience. Will very soon be 10 years this September of working with over 12,000 students who have trusted us with this very personal education experience, because it is quite personal to learn a new topic and transition into a new career. We're also honored to be accredited by Almega, which is a Swedish institution that basically verifies that an education organization meets the criteria to teach and to provide services here in Sweden. It's also recognized throughout the European Union. We follow a somewhat unique approach to teaching that we call flipped classroom, where you have both the live classes with a teacher, like Ivo, for example, and your fellow classmates, like Antonio. And that's where you're practicing all of the really technical hands-on exercises, making sure that you get the most out of that time with the instructor and your fellow classmates. And then we flip it around so that while you're at home, maybe you're on your couch or listening to a podcast, you can work through the theory on your own, read about topics that interest you, do some small practice exercises, and inevitably, when you have questions, you can bring those then to the live sessions with your teacher to discuss. Our curriculum is all curated by experts in the field that have on average 3 to 5 years of experience with the direct topic that we work with. Some have even more. And we also focus on not just teaching the technical skills, for example, front-end development and working with JavaScript or React. We also work with you to find a job through our career coaches, who are essentially recruiters that have lots of experience, number one, recruiting for these roles. So being on the other side of the video chat screen, interviewing lots of potential candidates, and they can pass on all of the experience that they have when they've spoken to someone who maybe is a little shy in the interview, or maybe someone who does a really good job in the interview. They can pass on all those tips that they've learned throughout their career to you. And then, of course, you have a very large community of Beetroot Academy students and teachers that can hold your hand as you go through this difficult process. Our front-end development course you can check out on the website, and you can also send an informational email with a syllabus that will cover the entire curriculum. As we've discussed already, it covers working with HTML and CSS, which is the very foundations of a website, but then JavaScript and React, which add the real fun functionality. And that's when you get into the real exciting stuff. You'll learn how to build websites from the ground up. And one of the most important parts is that as you go through the course, you'll build a portfolio of projects, including a final project at the very end that will be the shining piece of your portfolio. In many fields within technology, front-end development included, having a portfolio of work is one of the most important components of your application, because in the IT industry, specifically within front-end or design, the skills that you're learning are objectively verifiable. So even if you don't have, for example, a university degree in computer science, having a strong portfolio, doing well on a coding or practice interview, and then also having a solid CV can help you get the job. And that's what we focus on, making sure that you have the technical skills, the portfolio, the CV to prove it. Lastly, before we head into the Q&A, we also did want to mention a very special opportunity that we have in the summer. We realize at Beetroot Academy that the summer is a time for relaxation, but it can also be a time to get ahead in your career. Specifically thinking if you're someone who wants to be at the very best position possible at the very beginning of next year, when the hiring periods are the busiest in the early part of the year, January, February, and March, now would be the time to consider enrolling in a course. So what we're doing is we're putting together a scholarship fund that will run 3 months consecutively, one in July, August, and in September. The scholarship opportunity gives one recipient a full tuition scholarship to one of our courses, including the front-end development course or UI UX or project management courses. And then we'll also select on top of that 2 additional recipients who will receive partial scholarships that will cover up to 30% of their course fee. If you're curious about the summer scholarship program, be on the lookout for the email that we send after the presentation today, and I'll also link it again in the chat. There you can read more about the application process. We have the application open the first 2 weeks of every month, July, August, and September. So if you missed the one in July just now, be sure to apply at the beginning of August in order to be considered for the end of that month. We're very happy to be offering this. I think it's very important that we give an opportunity to individuals who may otherwise not have the resources to consider such a course. But yes, with that being said, I will stop sharing my screen now and we'll enter the Q&A session of the evening. So if you have any questions that you've sent in the chat, we'll walk through those in chronological order in which they were shared. If you have questions, please add them now. That way we have a chance to get through them before the end of the night. Yes, so now you see us here. Perfect. Great. One question that we received ahead of the discussion today was why we focus on teaching React as opposed to teaching Angular. Ivo, I think that one might be for you.
So we focus on React because the market demands it. So you can see that 90% of job offerings are for React. Also, to your question in comparing React and Angular, usually Angular is used mostly in corporations, not that much in startups and personal projects. Yeah, usually, and of course, React is also used in companies. A lot of companies are even shifting from Angular to React. Also, Angular is a bit more robust, a bit more harder, I would say, in some ways. So, and it's faster for people to adopt and create in React, and that's why typically companies decide on React as their framework for creating applications. And that's why we also focus on React, because it's not even an exaggeration when I say that 90% of open positions on the market are for React. And every statistic that you check, you will see that React is the most popular front-end framework, and it's not even close to the other frameworks.
Very good. Thank you very much. I can confirm from my experience as well that most product development teams I've worked on are working with React or React Native in the case of working with mobile applications. Another question that we received with the registration forms, looking at them now, is how interchangeable the skill set is between front-end development and back-end development. So if you start as a front-end developer, how easy is it to move into a career as a full stack or back-end developer?
Antonio, would you like to give your thoughts as a person who started with front-end development and just going into back-end development, or at least trying it out?
Yeah, I can try to answer this. I think if you know JavaScript, it's easy to learn some frameworks based on this language, like Express, and basically using one code language, you can do both parts. So it depends of your requirements and your desire. What would you like to choose, front end or back end? I think I started from front end because I felt better doing this part. But now I want to evolve in some way, and try to learn all the parts of web development.
Thank you, Antonio. So my thoughts on that. Frontend is written in JavaScript, and JavaScript is one of the, I would say, better languages to use to start off as a person who's getting into the programming field. The good thing about JavaScript is that you do not only use it for frontend, you can also use it for backend. The language is the same, the usage is a bit different. Also, if you start with JavaScript and frontend and you want to use backend but in another language, I can tell you that the only difference or the main difference is just the syntax. The ideas behind the different languages are the same. The patterns are the same. Most of the stuff that you do with the language is pretty much the same. We just use JavaScript for frontend and other languages like C++ or C# or Java for the backend. So it's if you're thinking of starting in frontend and also going into backend at some point, it will not be that difficult, especially if you use a JavaScript-based backend. So it will be pretty easy. So I would say that JavaScript is a good selection for a first language to start.
Very good. Thank you. We had one question that came into the chat that I thought was particularly interesting. The question was whether we help our graduates find jobs. And the answer to that is yes. That happens in a couple of different ways. Before even graduation, our career coaches begin helping students prepare their application materials. And also the instructor is one of the first components of that is your portfolio, as we discussed. That happens already in the final months of your course when you're working on that final project piece that will basically be a summative of all of the knowledge that you've learned in the program and will really showcase the skills that you have. Then after graduation, you begin working with the career coaches to do everything from reviewing your application materials, including your CV, your cover letters, your portfolio itself, and then also just talking to them about the best practices in finding a job, whether that's making sure that you're very meticulous in your application tracking so that you don't forget to accidentally follow up with an application that you've applied to, but also preparing for interviews, both the interviews about your general collaboration tactics, but also technical interviews, which are, I think, one of the main components of the hiring process for developers. So I was wondering, Ivo or Antonio, if you could tell us a bit more about the technical interview process from your perspective and how you select candidates that you want to work with on your teams.
So here, maybe I have more experience in hiring, in interviewing people who would be hired. So during the course, I try to give as much information. And after each lecture, we also have a section where we talk about interview questions, what are the most popular interview questions during the course. We also talk about not only how is it like to work as a front-end developer, but also how can we make sure that we start as a front-end developer. So we discussed a lot of topics. The good thing about the Beetroot Academy is also that it provides materials. It also provides people and resources to help you not only build your CV, but also to be ready to start your journey in front-end development. Regarding the hiring of people, usually what I look for a person when he or she comes to the interview is someone who knows his basics and someone who is eager to learn. That is the most important thing for a person getting into development. If you know the fundamentals of programming for the position, and if you want to continue learning and continue developing in order to become a better programmer and a better professional. I think this answers the question, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I would say another important component about interviewing is that, yes, technical interviews are a big component of the hiring process, But as we've discussed already, development as a role itself is quite collaborative. So I wouldn't also underestimate the impact that your other interviews will have. We were asked questions about how you collaborate, how you share feedback or receive feedback from others. Maybe when you were asked to describe ways of working, which you think are most effective. Those are all parts of an interview that are important. And when we've hired developers for the teams that I've worked on, sometimes even with the most talented developers from a technical perspective, we have chosen to work with another developer who has shown that they have maybe a bit more experience in the collaboration style or frameworks that we followed at the company that we were working for at the specific time. So as with any application for any role, it's a combination of different factors, but definitely important that you're prepared for both the technical and non-technical interviews. Another question that we have, if a student is unable to complete or not follow through the course within 6 months, how do you assist such a student to complete? Great question. I think it's actually quite rare that we have a student not be able to complete the programs in the 6 months. Ivo, do you have any experience with students who have been unable to finish the curriculum in those 6 months?
So usually if a person is not able to finish the course, this is more due to personal reasons. So illnesses or just job-related stuff. So for example, even Antonio could remember we had a student who was picking pace, as we say, and getting pretty good, but he was transferred in connection to his job from one country to another country, so it was not possible for him to continue with the course. Another student could not finish the course because of illness. So it happens. But usually, if you're healthy and you do not have additional problems, you will be able to finish the course. Of course, during the course, what I try to tell each student is that you're not alone in this course. We are a team, and if you have questions, if you have problems, you can always reach out in chat. You can reach out to the other students. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Beetroot Academy. No matter if it's a technical question or simply a personal question, if you feel overwhelmed or if you feel tired or you feel some other way, you can always contact us. We try to help you finish the course and get the knowledge that you need. We try to do everything which is in our power to help you achieve this jump in your career. And Antonio can also say that since we take all the decisions in the group in a democratic style, if, for example, the group feels overwhelmed, for example, or needs more time for either it's for homework or personal project or the final project, we will extend the deadlines so that everyone can finish and so that everyone can show what they have learned so far, and to have the best application, not only to show in the end of the course, but also to add in their personal portfolio so that they, of course, are more attractive perspective for a future employer.
Yes, that's very correct. We also do have dedicated roles within the Beetroot Academy ecosystem that are there to help students who may be struggling with pace or maybe with external circumstances outside of the course. The group manager, for example, is one of the first individuals that you'll come in contact with during your course with Beetroot Academy, and that's someone who's there for as a supportive role. So if you have questions about whether you can or cannot complete the course because of maybe a family emergency or something similar, in the past, when that's been the case, we've even had students be able to withdraw, resolve the issues that are happening outside of the course, and then enroll in the following course, timing it to where they left off in the previous course. But as Ivo mentioned, that is generally quite rare. Yes. We have one final question from the form that were submitted during the registration for the webinar, and it was around start dates for the program. So the start dates for the program happen generally every month. We have a front-end course that's starting already next week on the 26th of July. And then we'll have another course starting sometime at the end of August and another course starting sometime at the end of September or beginning of October. The course start dates depend a bit both on the flexibility and schedule of the instructor, but also the flexibility and the schedule of the students themselves. So if you are interested, please reach out to one of our education advisors. You'll get an email from us after this presentation sometime tomorrow in the morning, number one, with a link to the recording in case you missed anything or you want to review anything we covered, and then also the opportunity to schedule a call with one of our education advisors. Yes, I think that is it for the questions that are coming in through the chat and from the registration form that we had before the event this evening. So unless Ivo or Antonio, you have any final words that you'd like to share?
Antonio, let's start with you.
Good luck for everyone that want to apply for this course and want to become a front-end developer. Ivo is the best teacher in the world.
Antonio, thank you for the kind words. So I want to thank everyone for taking part in this webinar. Thank you for Noel for facilitating the presentation. Thank you for Antonio for sharing his experience. And thanks for everyone who tuned in, who asked a question. Hopefully, I will see you in the upcoming course and together we will become better at front-end development because, as I said, we are a team and we are learning from each other and we are together in this path on becoming professional front-end developers. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you to both Ivo and Antonio. That will wrap up this evening. I just shared in the chat a link to the summer scholarship program. Please do take a look and consider applying. No one's ever been injured by a scholarship. Even if you were thinking already of enrolling with your own resources, it might be helpful to have a bit of a partial help from Beetroot Academy. Or who knows, you may be selected for the full tuition scholarship. Otherwise, if you have any questions, be on the lookout for the email and you can schedule a call with one of our advisors. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.